Hello there, this is Business Incorporated on Channels Television. I am BC Adibayo. Coming up on today's show, South Africa's former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan criticizes KPMG for withdrawing a tax report used against him in a police probe. And the Nigeria incentive-based risk-sharing system for agricultural lending enters a 50 billion naira agriculture financing partnership with Stanbic IBTC. Plus, Egyptian government looks to issue 1.5 billion euro-denominated bonds within the next weeks. Well, let's begin from the stock markets in Africa, where Nigeria's all-share index is trending lower at intraday with a 0.14% decline. The South African Bourse is 0.9% up at intraday. The Egyptian index is also pointing southwards at intraday, while the Kenyan Bourse saw a marginal 0.01% rise on Friday. And in the Middle East, the Abu Dhabi index is up 0.14% at intraday, while the Dubai index is up 0.79% as Emirates Properties rose 1.5% and Dubai Islamic added 0.7%. Qatar's stock index is down again as shares in Qatar Insurance tumbled after it announced the closure of its Abu Dhabi branch because of the region's diplomatic crisis. The stock index had fallen for the previous 10 straight sessions. The Saudi index barely moved in the first 40 minutes of trade, with some of the petrochemical and banking shares that had risen on Sunday reversing slightly on profit-taking. But at intraday, the index is 0.13% up. And European stocks are pushing higher today, with the week getting underway with tensions surrounding North Korea cooling. Investors also have their eyes on the EU inflation data coming out today. Well, let's bring in DWTV Channels TV financial correspondent Daniel Coop for more on today's markets. It's good to see you again, Daniel.
Hi there, BZ. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. So the EU inflation data is out today. Tell us, what's the latest?
Yeah, and we got the newest inflation data by the European Statistic Office today, and we are seeing again what we have been seeing already throughout the last weeks and months, that inflation has been going up again. Actually, this time by 1.5%. This is most likely because of higher energy costs. And when you talk about interest rates here in the Eurozone, it's going to be another indication that's not going to make Mario Draghi, the head of the European Central Bank, happy, because he has been saying that this level of interest rate is not good for the region here in Europe. So we're going to have this discussion again about higher interest rates for the Eurozone. All the investors will be taking a very close look already on Wednesday, because on Wednesday there's going to be a press conference held by the Fed in the United States. Ms. Yellen is going to speak, and she is most likely going to announce higher interest rates again for the United States because of a very booming economy there. And that's pretty much what investors here at the stock market have been asking Mario Draghi during the last weeks and months as well, for higher interest rate. But so far, he has been sticking at this 0% interest rate policy throughout the last time.
Royal Mail in the UK is no longer listed in the FTSE 100 in London. Why is that the case? I mean, what does this mean for the company?
Well, I mean, this is quite a big shock, of course, for investors. Not really surprising, though, I have to admit, because the shares of the Royal Mail have been performing very poorly in this year already in the FTSE 100. But, you know, just imagine, it's one of the biggest companies, of course, in the UK. And the problems that the Royal Mail has been facing is also troubling other mail carriers around Europe and also around the world, because in this time where everybody has been sending emails and text messages, of course, regular mail is not anymore as profitable. That's why they're saying that it doesn't make any sense at the moment, for now, at least, to be traded in the FTSE 100. The picture here in Germany is a little bit different. When you talk, for example, about Deutsche Post is also holding DHL, which is the biggest express carrier around the world. So they are also having this international business. But Royal Mail has been mostly focusing just on the UK market, and that's why they are not as competitive as other mail carriers in Europe.
Now, just before I let you go, Daniel, let's talk about the Siemens-Russia trial over gas turbines. How important is Russian business for Siemens?
I mean, this story, is kind of like a Hollywood movie, BZ. I mean, Siemens was selling those turbines to Russia. They were thinking that those turbines would be used in the southern part of the country. Then they found out by incident, basically, that those turbines were transferred from the south to the Crimean island, that the European Union has been, sanctioned. So Siemens would not even be allowed to do this kind of, trade and business. Siemens has been very upset about this. They're even going right now through a trial with the Russian state. But of course, the Russian market is very important to Siemens. They cannot just say from one day to the other, we're not going to do any more business with Russia. It's a very important market, mostly because of three issues. Trains, for example. Siemens is building most of the trains for Russia. Very similar here. For example, the Intercity Express is very popular in Germany, but also in Russia. Then also about nuclear plants and also about those gas turbines. For the moment, Siemens has announced that they're not going to do any more business with companies owned by the Russian state. But in general, the market is very important to Siemens, so they cannot, just ignore the market.
Many thanks, Daniel, for those updates, and we'll see you again tomorrow. And US stocks are shaping up to resume a record run on today, with stock futures pointing higher as investor appetite for riskier assets continue to improve and concerns over North Korea ease. The Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures rose 0.27% to 22,279, while the S&P 500 futures gained 0.2% to 2,502. Nasdaq 100 futures added 0.19% to 6,006.25. And stock markets across Asia rallied on Monday following fresh record closes on Wall Street, with South Korea's benchmark index leading gains. South Korea's Kospi ended up 1.4%, logging its biggest gain since May, propelled by a 4.1% jump in index heavyweight Samsung Electronics. In Australia, the S&P ASX 200 ended 0.5% higher, supported by strong gains in bank shares. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index rose 1.3%. China's benchmark indexes also advanced, with the Shanghai Composite Index's 0.3% gain lifted by gains in alcohol and brokerage shares.